Dragon Quest Monsters is a video game series, and you know what video games have? Bosses. And with there being bosses that you're generally required to defeat in a certain order, surely you can take the first boss you fight and compare them between each game, right? Welcome everybody, I'm Defeater of Souls, and if you're interested in Dragon Quest Monsters content, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I should probably explain the criteria of this tier list that we're doing here. What makes a good first boss? Well, there's three main things that I can think of. The first one is how good are they as a boss, namely as a first boss. Generally, when you're fighting the first boss, you don't have access to synthesis yet, which is the main meat of the gameplay for the Dragon Quest Monster games. So it needs to test to see, make sure you understand all the simple stuff, how the battle system works, how you scout monsters, all of that stuff it needs to make sure that you understand. The second thing is how good they are in the story. What impact do they have? Why are they the first boss? And generally we just want to make sure that this makes sense and it's good. It doesn't need to be complex. We're not looking at the final boss here, it's the first one. It needs to make sense for why it's the first. And the third thing is least important, but how good is the boss as a normal monster by itself? This one has a lot less weight, but it's also important to take into consideration. So with all those three things in mind, let's get started with the very first boss in the entire series, Dragon Warrior Monsters Heel Slime. So, as a boss, it is incredibly simple. It attacks and it heals. Now, of course, a first boss should be simple, but this also works really well because if you're unable to deal damage faster than it's able to heal itself, you're not going to be able to defeat it. This allows you to make sure that you scouted monsters in order to deal damage, or that you figure out how to grind reliably in order for you to reach a point where you can deal damage. It also helps that they make sense in the story, because at this point you're still getting used to the area, that being Great Tree. You're still getting used to all the intricacies and whatnot, and you gotta save this random monster that ran away, otherwise the farmhand's gonna get his head cut off. Normal stuff. There are stakes, but they're not end-of-the-world style things. Just minor things that give you a reason to actually, want to save the day, want to fight the boss. So that all being said, I think it's really good. Now, how good is Heel Slime as a party member? Well, really good. Being able to befriend them immediately afterwards is extremely useful and is something that it does get bonus points for. And as a heal slime, it doesn't get used for too many unique synthesis options. However, getting access to healing really early is extremely useful, especially since most monsters in the first area won't have access to it. This also allows you to use it for future syntheses, and if you do that, well, you're going to have heal on a monster reliably for a good chunk of the game. So those are all good things. I think it just makes sense that I put him in A tier. He's really good, but he's not like exceptionally mind-blowing, so I don't think there's going to be any S ranks though, so, keep that in mind. Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 does not have the same strength with its first boss. Its first boss is the Beaver. And the Beaver, not just as a boss, but as a monster in general, only exists so that it can play this role in the story. At this point, you're wandering the Oasis Key trying to look for a plug for the Log's navel, and the king of the Oasis is struggling because people don't like him because he can't solve their problems. So he's trying to fix the water supply problem they have. And well, would you look at that, all the water is being blocked by a dam built by a beaver. So you gotta fight the beaver. The beaver just attacks and powers himself up. He's not really a threat. Now, sure, you could say that his main thing is he deals a lot of damage after powering up to make sure you have enough endurance to outlast it, but he's just not scary. Like, his powered up attacks aren't too devastating, and his normal attacks aren't that impressive either, and he can't really do anything else. So, he's not that notable as a boss, except for the fact that, he was invented specifically for that role. Although he does well in the story, when he actually becomes a monster, things start to fall apart. He does get the added benefit that you are able to obtain him once you complete the Oasis Key, and he is a decent monster all throughout the second world. The problem is, that's it. He can't be used for any unique synthesis options, because I don't know why. Because the Beaver just isn't useful for synthesis at all. It's a reliable beast monster, and if you need a generic beast monster, that's all he's useful for. He doesn't even learn that many interesting skills, not as a Beaver by himself, and especially not the one you're able to befriend for free. So I think I'm going to be putting him in C tier. Just not remarkable in many ways. I should probably mention I will not be going over the 3DS remakes of either of those two games since it's pretty much the same and there's nothing too different to talk about there. So moving on to Caravan Heart, we have the Gargoyle. This guy is pretty forgettable, but He has a diverse group of skills. He's able to use normal attacks and magic attacks, so he has some variety. His role in the story is pretty minor. He's just kind of antagonizing some random people and you go in to help, so he doesn't get any points for that. As a monster, he also isn't that special. He has a high star rating if you care about that. The skills you learn from him aren't too useful, and his weight is low, which I guess is a benefit, but eh, the best part about this boss fight is not the gargoyle or anything about the gargoyle, it's the fact that you get some pretty good human party members, most notably the fencer and a light warrior. So we'll put him in B rank just because of that, but it's going to be a low B rank. Moving on to Joker 1, we have an orc. Boss fight wise, he's pretty similar to the heal slime. He attacks and he heals, but he lacks the heal slime story importance. The heal slime was important because you gotta save this guy, you gotta bring him back, otherwise someone's gonna die. There were stakes, and I guess you could say that there are stakes here. The orc is attacked and had wounded the Incarnus, and if you don't do something, the Incarnus, well, wouldn't end well for him. And it's because of this boss fight and the fact that the Incarnus get speed up that he realizes that he needs help and he can't continue his journey alone. So yeah, I guess he does have that for him story-wise. But as a monster, Orc's not that good. I mean, he's an E-rank monster, but he lacks any traits, and his talents are mostly buffs, so he doesn't have too much going for him as an actual monster. So, as a boss fight, he's decent. As a story-wise, he's somewhat decent. And you know where decent monsters go? B tier, just above the gargoyle. Joker 2 is a step down from Joker 1 in pretty much only this occasion. The Hyper Hydra is not that good of a first boss. All he really does is attack and use Zam. The only reason why he exists is because they want there to be a boss fight at the end of Trepidation, but they don't want you to fight the Warmonger yet, because they want to save you fighting the actual big monsters until you get to Baby Bjorn a few areas later. So, you get the Warmonger. I mean, he works, I guess. Like, it's something preventing you from saving Bellows from the depths of the worm's belly, but he's just not that good as a boss. Like, I guess it's a similar situation to the Beaver, where his attacks are the most threatening thing about him, but if you survive those, he's got nothing. He's pretty easy to kill. And as an actual monster, he's not that good. His traits aren't the best, and his skill set is fairly unremarkable and doesn't gel well with his few traits. So yeah, he's going into C tier. Joker 2 Professional has the exact same first boss, so C tier. Joker 3, and by extension Joker 3 Professional, Bowshock is a really good first boss. First of all, as a boss, he actually comes with help, and he hits pretty hard. I mean, to be fair, the Hyper Hydra also hit hard, but Bowshock does it a lot better because he hits a lot harder. Plus, as a story role, he does a really good job. You just escaped your paradise hologram, whatnot, and you're fighting this corrupted looking orc. Like, it's a simple change they've made to him that makes him different from a normal orc, but it's an effective one. He looks terrifying. Just the simple change made him an intimidating presence. And he's actually a pretty good boss too, even if he is on the simpler side. He doesn't need healing to make it a battle of endurance, because he deals a lot more damage than bosses like the Gargoyle or the Hyper Hydra. Now, of course, how good is he as an actual monster? This is kind of hard to say. He's an SS rank monster, making him technically part of the highest group of monsters in the game. So I guess, yeah, he's a pretty good monster. I think it'd be fair to put him in A rank. Story, he serves an important role in. He's a pretty decent boss, and as a monster, it's not even a contest with the rest of these guys. Joker 3 Professional is once again the same, and we're not going over the mobile games, so that brings us on to the final first boss, that being Dark Prince's Burning. Now, you may not have remembered this guy existed. I know when I came up with the idea for this video, I didn't. He likes using Fire Breath and other fire attacks like Fire Slash. He's pretty simple, serves a decent role in the little sub-story of the first circle of the underworld, so I guess he's got that going for him. He's just not memorable. Now, technically, Bernie as an enemy isn't like a separate monster. He's just a type of Roshaveric, and Roshaveric is a pretty decent A-rank monster, who is just a breath attacker whose traits maybe aren't the best for being a breath attacker, but it's Dragon Quest monsters, you can fix that. So I think, just because he's not memorable doesn't mean he's not good, and it's a good way to teach you about elemental affinities and how to take advantage of those throughout the game. So I guess B rank maybe. Definitely above Gargoyle, but not too much so. Below Orc. And that is the ranking of the first boss in every Dragon Quest Monsters game. It's kind of a ridiculous idea for a video, I know, but it was fun. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where these lists of the random aspects that are being ranked are going to be a lot more ridiculous. So I guess stay tuned till that day. But thank you all for watching. If you are interested in more Dragon Quest Monsters content, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you got something to say, you can comment it down below. This video is a bit different from my usual ones, mostly because it's shorter and not as edited. That's because I'm working on a rather long video that I'm hoping to get out in a couple weeks. We'll see how well that turns out. But until then, let's move on to the question of the every other week. Last week, I asked about this weird slime from an obscure game and the random piece of headwear he happened to be wearing. Only one person was able to correctly guess its name, and that being Yoshimitsu111, so congratulations and thanks for playing along. This week, we're going to ask ourselves a different question. We just looked at all these bosses that were the first boss in their respective games. Doesn't mean that this was the only time you fought them. That's right, at least one of these bosses has had a rematch in their respective game. Can you tell me which one of these bosses you refight in a different time later in their game? If you're able to get it right, then I'll give you a shout out in the next video. So, thank you all for watching, and this has been Defeater of Souls.